Okay, here we go. Monday, November 7th. Welcome in. This is the Slate. We are a DraftKings show. That is where you found us over at DK Nation, streaming live on Twitter. And we are also live on the DraftKings YouTube and Twitch pages. Brendan Glasheen, different crew tonight. I'm here. Nick Friar joining us this week. What's up, Nick? How are you?
I am doing just dandy, especially because Jeff's not here. So I feel like last time I was on with you, I had to share you with him, and I wasn't a fan of that.
Oh, okay. Didn't know that was coming. I mean,
I want you all to myself. That's all I want.
well, thank you. If we want to pivot to that angle, that works too.
Yes, it does.
Very good. Yeah, no Jeff, no who else pops on Monday? It's just Jeff usually. So, well, all right, Nick. Well, you better see the downfall of being alone is it's up to you on the takes. I mean, I guess I can work some in here and there, but it is.
I'm ready. I'm ready. I always hold back when we have like a second analyst on, just because I want to make them feel comfortable with what they're doing. If it's just me, I'm not worried about it.
Okay. Wow. All right. Yeah. I mean, well, it's always good for some debate and whatnot, but yeah,
Sure.
we'll dive in. We've got about 45 minutes here, maybe closer to 40. We take you up until 6 o'clock. We're here every weekday, streaming on these channels. And on this Monday, as we normally do, we will discuss Monday Night Football between the Saints and the Ravens. The Saints are a short home underdog tonight with Lamar Jackson and company coming to town. A lot of injuries on these two teams. A lot going on there on the injury front. No Mark Andrews tonight. Secondaries are banged up. Old friend of the Ravens, Marlon Humphrey, is not doing too hot. But and the Saints pass catchers are also banged up. They're expected to get Troutman back, but Michael Thomas done for the year, which is too bad. I thought he was making kind of a great run there at the beginning of the season, but placed on IR. And I think we haven't heard yet on Jarvis Landry if he's in or out tonight.
I haven't seen anything on that one yet. The only one we got that I know of was Deshaun Jackson is going to be playing tonight. So
Yeah,
I'm very excited for that one.
that's right. And Lamar actually gave him quite the compliment on Thursday Night Football a few weeks ago when Baltimore played Tampa, and he was excited to watch him fly over the field. So that's good to know from a showdown standpoint, potentially. We'll dive into the DK Sportsbook angles as well. So the line's up to 2. I apologize. Saints +2 now at home on the money line, plus 115. Total hasn't moved all that much at 46.5. Nick, when you look at this game, Ravens are not doing well closing games. They are a first half juggernaut, but fourth quarter, not great. They give up leads. They actually thrive doing that. How do you break this game down with Lamar and company on the road against the Saints team still led by Andy Dalton on offense?
So with the total, I think it was it about a week ago? I think I saw it at 48, maybe 2 weeks ago. It was right around 49. So this has been trickling down over the past week or so. I think it bottomed out yesterday at 46 even. And so far, and looking at the market movement and everything, it's pretty much a 50-50 split in terms of percentage bets. But when you look at the handle, the under is getting a little bit more of the money. So I tend to lean towards that. But when I broke it down on DK Nation today with my best bets for this game, that the total was not among my favorite bets, but that is where I'm leaning. And because I'm leaning towards that, it makes me like the Saints as the home dogs more in this one. And that is one of my best bets for tonight's game. But I had them at 1.5. So I do love the 2. Obviously, you're running the risk of the push and everything like that, but I still take that half point. And the big thing for me, the reason why it's so surprising too, is everybody is so heavily in on the Ravens right now. The last I checked on the numbers with the splits, New Orleans was only getting 22% of the spread bets for this game, and they were getting a little bit more on the handle, which then leads me to believe, of course, okay, the sharps are leaning towards the Saints in this one. But to see that movement back in the wrong direction, where the Saints are getting, well, now it's moving in the right direction, where the Saints are getting a little extra points. I'm still going to take that because this game has been trending in the opposite direction. It bottomed out at 1 point, I believe, yesterday. So we've gotten a little bit of a correction, but still seeing where things are right now, seeing where the sharps are leaning toward. I like this. I love seeing the Saints get a little extra point, but I like them still a lot at 1.5.
The Saints are still very much alive. If they win tonight's game, they're still very much in the mix to win the NFC South with, even with Tampa winning yesterday, both Atlanta and Carolina went down. And as for Baltimore, like we mentioned off the top, we're still trying to figure out if this team is one that belongs in the cream of the crop of the AFC. You've got your tier of Buffalo and Kansas City, even though the Bills went down. But then after that, Cincinnati probably leads that next tier. And you're wondering, where do you put Baltimore? Where do you put Tennessee with no Ryan Tannehill? Even though Tennessee hung in there last night, Malik Willis had his fair share of struggles, and there's a clear gap there. But Lamar, no question, is far and away better than Malik Willis where he's at. And on any given night, he can give Joe Burrow a run for his money. The Ravens did beat them head-to-head. So, I don't know. I always come away watching a Ravens game. I don't know what I'm going to get. I don't know what we're going to get from this Ravens team. And I can't help but think about the final 30 minutes and what it might look like. Lamar Jackson this season, and not just this season, but in his career, has been stellar as a first-half quarterback. Lamar Jackson in his career in the first half against the number. I've got it right here somewhere. Where did I put it? Where are you, Lamar? It's a great stat. Here we go. Got it. Lamar Jackson.
Proud of you.
First half in his career, obviously with the Ravens. 37, 22, and 2 against the spread.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty automatic.
First half on the road, which is the spot tonight. 29-1. So, but that's the theme of the Ravens, is they got to play with a lead. Yep. And the question is, can they sustain that for a full four quarters? And I don't know. I mean, do we believe in the dome? New Orleans is a home field advantage. I still like to think so. In a big spot, Monday Night Football. A few years ago, I think it was last year before. Remember Ian Book was the quarterback for the Saints on Monday Night Football?
Wow.
I can get that bad. So Andy Dalton's hung in there. He can have a night or so. Well, what's your feeling on Lamar Jackson in this game, in this spot?
So I looking at Lamar Jackson. So that the first half stat is a great one, but the other thing I was looking at too was because I was trying to consider some of his props for tonight's game. And I actually wound up looking towards his rushing yards prop, and I actually went with the under on this one. Last I checked, at least when I wrote up for DK Nation, it was set at 16.5. Maybe you can pull it up, Clash. Maybe it has moved a little bit. It's still at 16.5. I did see it move to 59.5 at one point. I still would have liked it at that number. The big thing for me is everything is pointing towards him going over this number. The only thing that isn't pointing towards it is he's only 4 for 8 in going over this number on the season, but he's pounded the over on his rushing props to start the year or midway through the year. And 2 of the times that he went under this number, he was 3 yards shy of hitting the over. So and then you look at his Monday Night Football performances over the years as well too, Glash, and he's crushed this number every single year, and every single game, and I think he's 6 times he's played on Monday Night Football. So everything should lead people to think towards the over. But I have to go with the under on this one, because another big thing that jumps out to me, you talk about him not having his pass catchers right now, so no Bateman, which is huge, also important for the spread play that I mentioned. I forgot to mention that earlier, but then no Andrews as well. So now, okay, you're taking away all those weapons. You have Kenyon Drake, who's there, and maybe he's going to do something tonight. We'll see. So the biggest weapon far and away that the Ravens have in this game is going to be Lamar Jackson's legs versus his arms. So why not try and make him beat you with his arm when you don't have as many options? Sure, Deshaun Watson, from a DFS perspective, we'll talk about that later. There's some value there, but I don't think that he's going to come in and steal the show and somehow win you this ball game. It's going to be Lamar Jackson's legs. And when I was looking at what the Saints have done against teams opposing top rushers, and most of them are running backs, of course, right? Lamar Jackson is a very rare exception. I know Marcus Mariota, he went and smoked the Saints for 72 yards in week 1, but week 1, we did not know the Falcons are what they were. Obviously, they surprised everybody, and more surprising in that week than anything else. But seeing how they've held down Josh Jacobs last week, Joe Mixon a couple weeks ago, to me, that says a lot about how they're going to be able to contain Lamar Jackson. Still, is he going to get some? Sure. Could he get a touchdown in this game on with his legs? Possibly. But I think he's going to be held under his prop tonight for his rushing yards.
Also may have buried the lead. The Ravens acquired Roquan Smith, so he will make his debut tonight in the middle of this defense. You could make the case that he is, I don't know, he's definitely up there, top 3, top 5 pass rushers, middle linebacker guys this year. That's a pretty nice weapon to have going up against, Kamara's come on as of late as a scorer, and that might help you make a case to play him in a showdown format. Yep. Possibly as a captain. We all know Kamara's capability as a pass catcher, which is why he's phenomenal in these showdowns. But the price, you got to pay the price, just like you got to pay for Lamar Jackson. I don't know. I hear you. Like it's the line. Look, if we're being honest, as you said, the money's coming in on Baltimore, so it's like the bookmakers want you to take the Ravens. Feels like that's what this game reeks of.
100%.
How do the Ravens not handle their business? Big trade at the deadline. But the Saints, and they're not quite desperate because the NFC South is awful. This might be the worst division in football since the 2020 NFC East. And if you go back and look at that NFC East in 2020, holy cow.
Yeah. I mean, how many times over the years, like just looking at it, like forget like all of the sports betting stuff. I just never understand. I know the East Coast bias is a real thing. Don't get me wrong, especially being an East Coast guy, but good Lord, like the NFC East has gotten away with so much over the years, at least in our lifetime, where it's like, I get it. Like that. Yeah. It's got the Cowboys in there and the Eagles. These are like, prestigious, Washington, has been around forever, at least not prestigious organization by any stretch, but like you look at, they've been around, sure. But at some point it's like they're not good. Like we need to kind of like not give them as much coverage. I've never understood that one, the fascination with the NFC East.
Do you put out the betting splits at all on your Twitter handle? Do you do that?
No, that's usually Julian and Steve. Steve probably put those out.
Oh, it's a great point because I'm glad you said their names because I thought someone was working for this company and would post this content that they get paid to do, and nothing from Ed Lowe, which I think he's still out doing.
He is out. Yep.
God knows what he's doing. That he's got to be home. And
I got numbers for you, Glash.
You can, and I guess the World Series is over, so Steve needs a breather. I suppose I can give him the benefit of the doubt.
I shouldn't be stopping you from taking shots at them. I apologize. Maybe Jeff.
Yeah, really. I just put the ball on the tee for you, and you just ignored it.
And a couple of clowns. Although Julian is now a proud father again, so I'm happy for him. But let's see. So the betting splits here. So the Ravens are getting 77% of the spread bets in this game, but the Saints are getting 30% of the handle. You look over at the total, 50-50 split on the bets, but more money is going towards the under. In that one, and then when you look at the money line too, this is one I didn't even cite this, I don't think in my article, but I meant to. When you look at the money line bets too, 26% of the bets are going on the money line are going towards the Saints. So obviously everybody again is going towards Ravens. Love the Ravens. They're minus 135 on the money line, so you can still get them at a decent price. But then I see the handle, 35% of the bets. So only 9 percentage points, but that's absolutely all the sharps, not all the sharps, but that's sharp money going in there and back in the Saints to win straight up at plus 115. Look, I don't feel that confident in the Saints. Again, obviously we're talking like close to a pick 'em, so I maybe should feel that confident, but I do think that the Ravens can make some mistakes where I'm going to take the extra points here and get a little bit of wiggle room, but still like that doesn't look like to me. That says a lot about how I view the Saints going into this game, is why I'm leaning towards the spread on this one with them.
So just to get everyone caught up to speed, I know we've kind of been rambling on about, of course, the spread in total, and we mentioned some injuries. So no Mark Ingram tonight for the Saints. Jarvis Landry is still questionable. We know Marshawn Latimer's out. No Michael Thomas. Bradley Roby was placed on IR earlier in the week. And as it pertains to the Ravens, their big miss here is Mark Andrews. And that to me is why I'm actually really curious as to why you like an under in rushing yards, because what else are they going to do? I mean, like Likely's a nice little piece. He's emerged. He'll be the next guy in line for Andrews. Duvernay, which 4 targets last couple games, and that's not going to do it for you. Gus Edwards is doubtful.
Right.
Like this is the criticism that often, like, I think this has happened to Buffalo now a little bit, but Buffalo's weapons are just so much better. But Buffalo, and we'll get to Josh Allen. There is some news on Josh Allen, but what all I'm trying to get at is feels like the Bills as of late. Again, weapons are very good. They've got good weapons, so it's not a great comparison, but they're so Josh Allen dependent to play make. And you look at Lamar Jackson, he doesn't even have pieces on his team.
Right.
Now, the Jets, who took down the Bills, their personnel, you could argue right now, as we sit here today, week 9, Monday Night Football, the Jets have a healthier personnel, younger, rookie contracts, so you're not paying a bunch of guys. The Saints pay a lot of guys, but some of their top price guys are out because of injury. I guess I'm trying to understand how you feel, unless you really think this is a stinker, and that's why you want to take the Saints, because Lamar is going to have nothing going, and it's easy for it's easy for Dennis Allen, the head coach of the Saints, to draw up a defensive game plan.
I think it's a lot. Look, Lamar Jackson's obviously a very talented player and dynamic and everything like that. But you take away Rashad Bateman, who is a guy who people early in the season were talking about how it's important when he's out of the games. In the 2 games that he missed this year, by the way, the Ravens failed to cover, and they were favored in both of those games. The spread wasn't as tight in those games, but they weren't whoppingly large spreads. And then, of course, you take away Mark Andrews, and that's kind of my focus in this. Is that okay? You take away some of his best guys, and yes, Kenyon Drake has had some moments and everything like that, and he could go and have a good night tonight. I think getting some exposure to him in DFS does make sense. But when you look, Lash, at what is your most important piece right now for the Ravens? What is the most valuable offensive asset that you have? It is Lamar Jackson's legs. I mean, that's usually the case anyways, but now what's the next thing after that? Is it Kenyon Drake? Is it his arm? Is it like we're like from an offensive standpoint only? So I think that's going to now, if you're the Saints, that should make things a lot easier for you, like you said, from a game plan perspective and from an execution perspective too. Now you should be able to keep him contained in the pocket a little bit more easily. Again, could he get a touchdown in this game? Absolutely. Do I think from a DFS perspective, you still need to roster Lamar Jackson? Yeah, I think from a flex view, though, versus taking him at captain necessarily, again, because you mentioned it earlier, his price tag is ridiculous tonight. Makes sense. But I just don't. I think there's too much going in the Saints' favor. And then again, when I look at that number, he's crushed that number on Monday Night Football in the past. When you look at his what he's done on the other 2 primetime games, though, that the Ravens have had this year, he went under that number in both of those games. So, and one of those games was when Bateman was out too. So, from it, make him beat you with his arm, where he's more likely to make mistakes.
Saints are 11th of the National Football League in rushing yards allowed per game. Ravens are a top 3 rush defense too. So that's why I think the under makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
In this game. Unders are also, they've had a great year. It's been the year of the underdog, year of the under, but the unders are 8-4 in this week.
Yeah.
Counting the entire weekend. So unders have been a good play. They've been rolling in this season and this week in week 9. So, all right, fair enough. I get the argument. I just it just worries me. It's sure. Like it's Jackson and it's Justin Tucker. Those are like their 2 most reliable people at this stage. I mean, no Andrews totally changes everything. It's like Brady with Gronkowski. It was like similar.
Sure, but it's definitely a contrarian viewpoint on my end. But like I'm very comfortable with that because, like, again, when we're talking about everything is leaning towards me thinking, okay, this should be the over should hit on this number, but then why is the number this low? So and I mean that's what happened this weekend too with Alec Pierce for me, and then with Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers was the inverse, where I wouldn't be over for him on his passing prop. He hadn't gotten to what was, I think, 258 was his high before this weekend. It was set at 261.5 when I wrote it up on Saturday. He goes and crushes that. I don't remember if he ended up with 300 or just shy of 300, but Rodgers had not done that all season. Why is that number so high? And I understand the Lions being a factor in it, but then you didn't have, Lazard wasn't in that game. So it just too much was pointing towards him going under that number aside from the Lions. So that's why I went that way. And then same thing with Alec Pierce. He got 23 yards and his receiving prop was set at 28.5. He had gone, his lowest number since week 1 had been, I think it was 31 yards, and everything else was at least 40 and over. So why was it so low? And then you look at what the Patriots have done against slot receivers throughout the course of the season. One of the matches I said most was Amon-Ra St. Brown. Obviously, he was dealing with injuries, but still they shut him down in that game, like 4 receptions. But like, I think it was under 20 yards on 4 receptions. So to me, like, you sometimes got to consider, why is it that this number is so favorable, so good for you in this spot to take the over in this situation? Because obviously we naturally want to take the over because usually we're looking for more offense too.
Okay, we'll take any questions you might have in the YouTube or Twitch chats. We're streaming again on DK Nation on Twitter. So you mentioned going contrarian. What is a contrarian approach to the showdown? Because in your write-up, you like the Lamar under, you like the Kamara over in rushing yards. So I guess you would not mind spending up on Kamara overall, but you're actually going to get a discount in comparison to Lamar Jackson. Saving $1,500.
100%. I think, look, could you captain Lamar tonight? Sure. I mean, if you're running multiple lineups out there, then yes, I do think it's worth having one where Lamar is at captain. But if you're running out I don't know, 10, then I would probably say you put Lamar in 1 or 2, because I think Kamara and Olave are the way to go tonight. Obviously, Lamar has the highest ceiling of all these guys, but Kamara is not far off. He's come along lately. And you mentioned the rushing yard prop and how I like that one. One thing that we've seen with the with opposing running backs against the Saints, they've been putting up really good rushing numbers over the last 6 weeks. I know that Leonard Fournette didn't do that this past weekend. I think it was Devin Singletary didn't do that a few weeks back either during this stretch that I'm talking about. But both of those guys had good receiving yard performances as well. So you bring up, adding Roquan Smith, maybe that makes things tougher for Andy Dalton to drop back. Maybe it makes it tougher for him to find Kamara in the receiving game. But I think from a rushing standpoint is where he may end up going off tonight. So I do like him a lot there. I think Olave, seems like he's going to be the most popular play. And I do understand that, probably worth getting more exposure to him because he does give you a lot more roster flexibility where you can still have him at captain, then a Kamara, and then maybe, Lamar. And then you still have a wiggle room because there are some good value plays in here. You mentioned Justin Tucker I think he's 4,200 for his flex price. I think that's a guy you absolutely have to consider in this one.
Yeah, that Ravens defense, and their last game was against Tampa. For a second, I was wondering if they had played again, but yeah, they've had some time off since that Thursday night game against the Bucs. So they had another day of rest, not playing on Sunday. But Browns get 113 on that defense. Giants 83 rushing yards. That's a pretty good back, and Saquon, of course. But I think when you consider also their last 4 games, 3 games excluding Tampa. Mixon is a threat to catch it out of the backfield. Barkley, a threat to catch it out of the backfield. Chubb is more of the bell cow guy. Kareem Hunt could also catch it. So that's fair. They've done a pretty good job covering the pass. Now, Tampa, different story. That's a game script, again, that favored the Ravens. They have a lead. Tom Brady dropped back to throw 56 times yesterday in a 16-13 game. Which is just mind-numbing. So, fair enough.
The whole situation in Tampa Bay is mind-numbing.
Yeah.
It's absolutely banana land.
So, I get the sense. So, Troutman's going to play tonight at tight end. Juwan Johnson was a favorite of folks a couple of Thursday nights ago to catch a touchdown. That delivered when the Saints played the Cardinals on Thursday night. That was the breakthrough Thursday night game where finally we got points. All these Thursday night games. We wondered if Al Michaels remembered how to call a touchdown, and he saw 70 points worth of offense. Well, a couple of pick sixes, but he saw touchdowns, which is good news for the Thursday night product on Amazon. Any value guys, someone further down the sheet, because the obvious picks are you're going to have your Jacksons, Kamara, Olave. How do you differentiate and pick the right value guys? Because that's what kind of tonight feels like. You got to pick the right ones to thrive with everyone being consistent on the top guys.
Sure. I mean, Troutman is a guy I think that's worth your while. But now that we know Deshaun Jackson is going to be playing in this game, he's only $200 last. I mean, and this is where you do that. This is the kind of spot. I mean, he's not. I think actually I was looking at what Gary and Thorne had written up on DK Nation because he did the DF side coverage for us. He's not suiting up just for his good health. There's a reason that he's playing in this game because A, they need him, and B, he's going to contribute in some capacity. Is that going to be a lot? Probably not. Could it end up being a significant amount? Sure. Either way, you don't need a lot from him for him to return his value. More importantly, if you're rostering him and then you're captaining Olave, you have a lot of flexibility to now where you can go and maybe throw in a Tucker after you add him and those top three guys that we're talking about. And then you can go and maybe bring in someone in like Taysom Hill. Actually, you could do either way, but you have some more flexibility to maybe roster like a Kenyon Drake, I believe, if you go and do something like that. If you want to go, point is, if you roster Jackson and then you go with those other three guys that we're talking about, you have a ton of flexibility. You can go and bring in a high price guy and another value, or you can bring in like two mid-range guys if you're feeling that route. He just gives you infinite flexibility. And again, you don't need a whole lot of return. And we know we have a good idea of who the contributors are going to be in this game. And Taysom Hill is a guy who, a mid-range guy. I think he's 6'5",
6,400.
6,400. Yeah. I mean, look, I like Taysom Hill. He's been from like, at the tight end. If you have him in season-long fantasy, he's been giving you good value. Prime time, I mean, might be worth a little bit of a risk. I mean, that's a good way. It's a way to differentiate yourself. Obviously, you got to pay up quite a bit for it. But when you go and have Deshaun Jackson in your lineup, and then again, not rostering Lamar Jackson in this spot, or at least not putting him in that top spot, I should say, you can, find a way to differentiate yourself. There's worse ways to do it than Taysom Hill.
I feel like anytime I see Taysom Hill's name on one of these showdowns, I'm like, really? Like, really going to pay this much for this guy? Even Kenyon Drake, 7,200. Kenyon Drake had a breakout game. 62 yards is fine, but that breakout game against the Giants, I feel like he's still thriving off that game to be worth this much money. But again,
he had a solid game last time out too. I mean, yes, like in terms of price, it is egregious, but like you said, a lot of Saints guys are hurt. The big Ravens guys are hurt too.
Yeah.
I mean, somewhere.
Yeah, I think that, and I think the point we should also make is we're rattling off these injuries. A lot of these injuries were well established early in the week, right? So we knew before this contest was even created, there was a strong possibility that a lot of guys that normally get a bulk of the snaps defensively and offensively were not going to be in this game. So they were all priced accordingly. So point being, when you do these showdowns, some guys are going to cost a lot because they've got to give some guys some hefty price tags. That's just the way this goes.
Yep. So absolutely.
All right. I think we've hammered this game pretty well. So you're leaning. So you're 3 picks over on the DK Nation side.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm watching my cat. He looks like he's up to no good.
They usually are up to no good. Mine is generally like that too. Probably plotting my death right now.
Saints plus 1.5, which you can get now at 2. It's still at 2 over on the DK Sportsbook.
Mm-hmm.
Alvin Kamara's over on rushing yards, and Lamar Jackson under rushing yards.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep.
That's gonna be a sweat. That's gonna be a sweat. I mean, it just feels like a run heavy game tonight. So that's why I like the under full game. So okay.
Yeah.
We can spend some time on this coming week, week 10, because lines are up and active. But why don't we spend a minute on this report that just came out 15 minutes ago? Josh Allen, which there was a fear of this after the game against the Jets yesterday. Josh Allen being evaluated for ulnar collateral ligament injury.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Not great. Not great. I mean, this is obviously an injury we see pop up more in baseball. One that I'm definitely familiar with. I mean, we all are in some capacity, but this is as bad as it gets. And when you were talking before about how like the Bills are clear head and shoulders above everybody else, or at least that it's them and the Chiefs. I mean, this automatically takes them way out of that conversation because yes, you do have a lot of weapons there that can be used, but I mean, pretty much anybody right now, anybody at quarterback right now is a significant drop off from Josh Allen. Like I think even Mahomes, even Lamar Jackson, like Allen, yes, he does make mistakes, but I just think right now he's the best guy. And to take him away, as much as you're going to still have a Diggs left over, you have Singletary, Gabe Davis, all the other guys. I mean, it's you just can't take away a best player from any team and expect them to be the same thing.
You don't believe in Case Keenum against his former team?
I mean,
Skull.
I mean, I can understand them being favored still significantly on the road. Because obviously they still have that elite defense. And the Vikings, Kirk Cousins, you don't know what you're going to get. And on the road, I trust them even less. But that's probably a game that I would feel more inclined to stay away from. If Josh Allen plays, if Josh Allen still ends up playing and his ACL his UCL, is fine, I think I might actually take the Vikings in that spot, just because I don't. If it right now, like right away, it's kind of like the Herbert situation early in the season when he played Jacksonville. Like I'd rather fade the injured quarterback as much as great player and everything, and try and take advantage of that spot.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, look, I'm not high on the Vikings at 7-1. If you look at their last 5-6 games, they've been very lucky in terms of, well, their luck rating is extremely high, but look at who they faced, right? Backup quarterbacks, bad schedule. But again, we do this every year. Like the NFC is having a down year because of Green Bay, Tampa, and the Rams. So if those teams are down, as a result, a couple are going to overachieve. And that right now, the Giants for sure, and the Vikings for sure. I get Dallas too, but Dallas they've got some legit pieces, and so do the Vikings. The Vikings are a much improved roster. But I think the key, what I keep thinking about when I see a line of 6.5, which is the current line right now, I wonder if Allen, if Allen's out, the number becomes shorter for Buffalo at home as a shorter favorite. I don't think that line has already got Allen out baked into it, but I just can't help but remember how the Vikings looked at Philadelphia. Granted, that was a long time ago.
Sure. Against
a mobile quarterback. Now, the difference is, I think the Eagles have a reputable, respectable running game. The Bills have Josh Allen, and that was kind of my point earlier. That's it. They don't run the ball well enough. They're like the Harlem Globetrotters with Josh Allen. Like they put on a great show and everything's going great, but when you're in a close game and it comes down to some big plays, the problem is I don't trust Kirk Cousins, but it's 1 p.m. Kirk Cousins, not nighttime Kirk Cousins.
Right.
Point being, differences though for the Vikings in this game playing the Bills at 1:00 in Buffalo as opposed to Monday night at Philly. Philly at least has a running game with Sanders. They put Hurts in really comfortable situations because they're coaching him up. Whereas with Josh Allen, they've coached him up to a level. Dayball got him to a level where he's phenomenal. Don't get me wrong. This is not an indictment of the player. It's an indictment of how they're using him. They're just using him in such a way where we need you to create and be magical for us to win. And for a guy that's injured now, I don't think that's a really fair spot for Josh Allen. So maybe it will force Buffalo to install a running game, get Devin Singletary going, see if you have anything in James Cook. Like, figure it out to some degree. And they made a move at the deadline, and I can't remember who they got.
They got Nyheim
Hines, correct, from the Colts. So maybe this is a good thing for Buffalo in a way. Obviously, you hope Allen's fine. They need Allen to win it. Don't get me wrong, but maybe it forces them to install a game plan where you try to establish a running game. So your quarterback does not have to bail you out every single week.
I mean, it's a UCL thing. Anytime we're talking about injuries that end in CL, I just think it's a terrible bit of news for you, no matter what. I mean, now the more we're talking about it, guys, the more I like the Vikings in this spot, because now, like I said, if Josh Allen plays, I like that. I like this number a lot for the Vikings because they should be able to shorten up the field quite a bit defensively, because as much as Josh Allen may feel fine at any given moment, even if he's feeling fine, I don't trust necessarily the strength in his arm. So now you don't have to worry about the deep threat in the same capacity. So, I mean, and then if you talk about, not having much of a ground game too, as much as it's just Josh Allen, okay, I mean, sure, he's going to run more, but like by shortening up the field from a passing game perspective, now it's going to make it a lot easier for them to cover him, with his legs.
Of course, you want that key number of 7 if you want to take the dog in this spot. So it's 6.5. If you want to bet Buffalo, you probably want to wait. Or take it now if you think Allen's going to be just fine. But on the Viking side, you want to try to get 7, maybe 7.5, but I doubt it with that Allen report this afternoon. And should give credit, that's Chris Mortensen who was on that. And yeah, just last point on the injury. Again, we're not a doctor show, but Mortensen pointed out in his reporting that this has to deal with nerves and nerve damage to what's going on here. So yeah, not great. Let's spend a moment or two on Frank Reich got let go today. So finally the Colts realized we can't blame, or Frank Reich for that matter, we can't keep blaming positional coaches other than him for what's gone on the first half of the season. That was an atrocious football game yesterday. I listened to a bulk of it on the radio, admittedly. Patriots and Colts, both teams inept offensively. It is putrid. The Patriots fortunate to win that game because the Colts gifted it to them with their incompetence. Sam Ehlinger is not very good. The Colts are getting 6.5. Do you feel like this is a spot now with Reich out of the building? We don't know Jonathan Taylor's status. Jeff Saturday is the interim head coach. He was just doing analysis at ESPN on Saturday. Well, Sunday. Sorry. He doesn't do college football. He does the NFL. So Jeff, who covered football on Sunday, got named coach on Monday. Did you follow that one?
Yeah. I mean, I know what happened, so I know where we're going with this.
Yeah, we have an audience here, Nick. Come on, give me a break.
But yeah, look, I mean, they're in a terrible situation, the Colts right now. I mean, because obviously Jonathan Taylor, you're banking on him coming into the season, and it's just dealing with injuries, an ankle injury, any lower body thing with a running back. I mean, running backs in general, they're just going to get banged up. And then of course Hines is gone, but he was dealing with stuff throughout the course of the season too. Matt Ryan did not pan out in the way that you planned him to. So yeah, I mean, like, it's not great that he's blaming everybody else, but when you look at the situation, it's like, well, it's kind of like they didn't really have much of a chance because you didn't have the key pieces that you were trying to rely on going into the season. But I get it. At some point, you got to make a decision. You got to make a move. And, I guess now's the time. Now, the Jeff Saturday situation is odd, to say the least. I mean, because you look at it and you think, of course, like you said, why are you bringing a guy straight out of the booth midseason in to coach a football team? Yes, of course, he's an accomplished football player and everything like that, the NFL level.
Nick, it feels very baseball-like. Ooh, David Ross, Alex Cora. Hey, you look good on TV. You sound like you know what you're talking about.
Sure. Yeah. Bobby Valentine, of course, too, right? It's strange. But there is a way where this makes sense to me, because I was thinking about it, and it's like, why would you do something like this? But if the Colts are the Colts going to contend this year? Absolutely not. Do they have anything to play for? No. So why would you go and try and insert a guy who you expect to be the guy starting now? It's a mess. You need to figure out everything. You need to regroup. Now, could you go and bring in a new guy and then try and resolve things and whatever? Maybe it helps out. Sure. But to me, I look at it as you bring in Jeff Saturday, who's, obviously was with the franchise for a long time, won a Super Bowl with the franchise, everything like that, cares about this franchise. You bring him in, and yes, is he have coaching? I don't think he has any coaching experience. I could be wrong, but either way, you're pulling him out of the booth, and he hasn't been coaching all year. Now it's okay. I want you to look at every facet of the organization and tell me where the flaws are. Where do we have the issues? Where do we need to improve? Because for him, I mean, unless he's assuming he has a legitimate shot at being a coach, which would be kind of weird. Then it's like, why did you make this jump? Like you said, it feels like a baseball thing. You should be looking within the organization or trying to hire other qualified guys around the league. But if you're just looking at it as, okay, we need to take a second, we need to reassess and figure out where we want to go and what we need to adjust, what we need to improve on, what we need to cut bait with. Bringing in a guy who's like, like this is that guy's franchise. Okay, like now it kind of makes sense to me. So maybe I'm putting myself in too much of a pretzel, in my thought process. But there is a line of logic where I see, like, okay, if Jeff Saturday is just going to be the interim head coach for the remainder of the season, then I get it.
Fair enough. I mean, they haven't got the quarterback right. We know that. 3 straight years of washed up veterans. Veterans is strong when it comes to Wentz, but I think we're finding out too, this wasn't a lot of Carson Wentz's fault. This is an organizational missteps.
They're a mess. They're an absolute mess right now. I mean, I personally, of course, I hate to see it. I never want to see the Colts struggle at all. But yeah, it's just like it's
kind of incredible. Like I liked their roster and what they've done. They were on the cusp last year They beat the Patriots in December. It's a nice win. That was a big game. Patriots Colts last year in Indianapolis. You felt Indy was going to be a tough out in the playoffs. Carson Wentz, game manager, Jonathan Taylor, breakout year, Michael Pittman. You found a diamond in the rough in the 4th round, and you lose to Jacksonville. And that ended your playoff hopes, and they're just trying to stitch it together. You can't fake it with this position. You got to really invest.
Right, but also, and again, like where you don't have Taylor, where you expected him to be, like it's not even a matter of like you expected him to be an A, and now he's like a B minus. Like he's just a non-existent. He's barely existed. So how are you going to recover from that? So that's where in the end, it's like also, I get Reich was in a tough spot from that standpoint, but either way, like I don't know. I don't want to like give Wentz like a full pass on this situation because he still like, makes a lot of mistakes and everything, but you're seeing like it's, I think the best way to sum this up is it's an absolute mess in Indianapolis.
Hey, before we let you go, a couple minutes left. Let's shift gears to the NBA. It's a special night. First time in league history. All 30 teams are playing on the same night. 15 NBA games, all staggered by 15 minutes. That is cool. That is fun. I like that. And of course, the reason why they're doing this is because they are prioritizing folks to go out and vote tomorrow. That is why the NBA has got 15 games tonight. Yes, they're giving the November 8th. Everyone gets the day off to get folks to go out and vote, but also the arenas. The arenas are going to be used as places for folks to go vote. So that was part of the one of the new agreements when they the CBA and when they brought when they came back from COVID and the shutdown. This was something the players prioritized, owners, coaches, GMs. So yeah, neat initiative.
I just didn't know this was the first time that it's ever been all 15 teams on one night. I don't know how I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I don't know how this has been a thing.
Crazy. Well, I mean, because you normally get your 2 TNTs on Tuesday or Thursday, and then you get your, I mean, those typically Tuesday and Thursday, you get those smaller slates with the national TV games. So the whole league is off tomorrow. You got 3 plays. You want to dish them out quick before we go?
Sure. So I got the Cavs game, which is probably my favorite game. Of course, the Cavs have been absolute monsters against the spread. Last night when I was getting ready for the show, they were -4.5 and they were all the way down there. Now they're -5. I still like them in that spot. The Clippers are one of the worst teams against the spread to start the year, and they're 0-4 against the spread at home. Both teams are on the second leg of back-to-back, but the Cavs, it doesn't matter to me because they have so many weapons. They have youth on this team too. The Clippers, like John Wall, now he's out as well. Not that, he's end all be all, but when you have no Kawhi Leonard and then Paul George is your number 1, it's like, okay. And then I think Reggie Jackson is a bit of a question mark as well. Kennard might've been too. So I hate the Clippers in this spot. Also in this game, Evan Mobley, 7.5 rebounds is his rebound prop at last I checked. The under is 8-1 on Mobley's rebound props to start the season. So very surprising rate. He's only gone over this number twice. So I'm actually going to take the over in this one too. Again, going against a team that, I expect there to be a lot of offense in this game, probably a little bit of shaky shooting because it is second leg of a back-to-back for both of these teams. And then in general, too, you look at the Clippers, they give up a lot of rebounds to power forwards. I think they're like in the top 5, if not like just outside the top 5 in rebounds per game allowed. So I like the over on Mobley there. The Nets, as much as they are a mess right now, they're +6. +6 against the Mavericks tonight. And this is one where I'm talking about too, looking at the market and everything with the Nets. They're getting 49% of the spread bets in this, but 59% of the handle. Also getting some significant, although they are getting less than 50% of the money line bets, they are getting more on the handle. And the Mavs at home this year, they're not great against the spread too. So I like the Nets as underdogs. I like the Cavs as favorites. Mobley, the over on his points, and then Derek White, the under on his points going up against the Grizzlies too.
Okay. Very good. And again, all games are staggered by 15 minutes. The NBA is giving you the opportunity to watch all of these games. They are all available for free in the NBA app. So I just give a little plug for the NBA. But come on, the NBA, DraftKings, we do a bunch of stuff together. So that's fair game. Okay, that's it. We got to go. It's past 6 o'clock.
Oh my.
Nick Friar, great work. Versatile. Nice work tonight, getting ready to go for the Monday night game and looking ahead to next week and tonight in the NBA. Should be a nice sporty night, my friend.
Absolutely.
Okay. College basketball's back too. That's fun.
Ooh.
Go check Julian's Twitter. Maybe he'll be doing some work for you, the people. Thank you to Andrew and Eamon behind the scenes for getting us set, ready to go, and feeding us some info during the show. For Nick Friar, Brendan Glasheen, you all have a great night. The Sweat is here at 11 a.m. tomorrow. Same platforms that you found us tonight, and you get the Slate after that 4 o'clock Madden Sim tomorrow as well. Have a great night and enjoy.